now that this is a war against Islamist ideology, and many are questioning how that war can ever be won.
That's fantastic reporting by Charlotte Dubinsky all over this story, even to the point of making us understand the details of the people who were directly affected by this. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Let's pick up on that conversation now with Dr. Maha Hilal, who is a co-director of the Justice for Muslims Collective, as well as our own former Pentagon official and contributor here at RT, Michael Maloof. Dr. Hilal, I'm wondering if you can explain to us, because the average person who's watching our newscast right now would think that those people who went into that church and almost beheaded a woman who was simply praying are just the worst people in the world. How can they do something so heinous? And yet we're hearing leaders in the Muslim world that seem to almost be defending them. Can you make us understand that?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, first of all. I should add a disclaimer that although I am Muslim, I cannot speak for the entirety of the Muslim world.
Well, of course. That's a given.
Right. But typically when Muslims are on shows and such, there is this presumption that we know what every single other Muslim in the world is feeling or believes. So I will add that disclaimer. In terms of what has happened in France, obviously it's tragic what happened. But I think what continues to happen generally when we're analyzing these contexts is that we're not getting the whole picture, right? First of all, yes, we can agree that free speech is a principle that we should all value. But when it comes to free speech, and I can talk about the American context a little bit better, free speech comes with power, right? Not every group that is exercising free speech has the same amount of power. So when we talk about certain groups having the right to free speech, sometimes their speech has more power, and as a result, there are more consequences to others that the speech is directed at. So for example, when Trump became president and continued to utilize negative and demonizing rhetoric against Muslims, the number of hate crimes increased. So there are actual consequences sometimes when there is free speech. That doesn't mean necessarily it should be curbed.
So, but you're not. But I don't want to misunderstand you in any way. You're not excusing the actions of the terrorists who went into the church and killed people, or killed the teacher, for example, who showed the cartoon to his students. You're not excusing that, are you?
No, I'm not excusing it, but I also would hope that you ask that question of a white person who comes on to talk about white supremacists, because I don't think as a Muslim, I need to be in the position of excusing or not excusing behavior.
I understand your point. Listen, I understand your point, and I don't think it needs to be an and or. And I think even Mr. Maloof himself will probably agree with you here that what we're finding from this situation, and you probably didn't get a chance to see our newscast yesterday, but we reported on the fact with our correspondents and our analysts that there is a resentment in the Muslim community against France, not for this, but for a history of the way that they've been treated. Michael, back me up on this if I'm correct.
Well, yes, you are. And as a disclaimer, I am not a white racist, white supremacist.
I wasn't talking about you, just so you know.
You said the person who comes on. I heard you. But at any rate,
oh, no, I did not say that.
The problem that we're seeing here, excuse me, I'm talking. The problem that we're seeing here today is intolerance on all sides. Look at how Christians are treated in Arab-speaking countries and Muslim countries. If this intolerance generally all around can cease and desist, and I think then we have a better chance at having people not demeaning other people's religions. Religion, after all, has been the source of war and crises for 2,000 years at least, and it's got to stop. When is it going to stop?
But let's talk about that for a minute. Tomorrow, let us suppose the New York Times ran a caricature making fun of Jesus Christ. Would people in the United States attack the New York Times, or maybe even physically assault the New York Times editor or one of its reporters? Dr. Hilal, I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, well, no, the answer is no. And I suspect the reason is because the United States is a white Christian hegemony. So when you're producing those things in a country that is largely the religion of the people that are being insulted,
Yeah.
then I think that's a different reaction.
So you're
And I
saying
wanna
it's
say
all
about
about power. You're saying it's all about power then, right?
I think there's a large component of power. And I want to say something about, you know, what the gentleman just said in terms of, actually, now I'm kind of forgetting what you said, but I just think that, yes, there is a question of power. I think when we talk about France, it's not just the history, it's the present. I mean, France has been heavily involved in the US's war on terror. So, I mean, whenever we're talking about these contexts, we're also continuously divorcing France from a larger picture of violence, state violence in other countries. And so long as we continue to do that, then we're never going to get the whole picture, and we're never going to actually be able to resolve the issue. And when it comes to religion, yes, religion has been a source of violence in a lot of contexts, but religion has also been a source of peace. So to kind of malign like religion altogether, I think it is unfair.
Michael, if you could just button this up, we got 15 seconds for you. Agreed that in fact people in the Muslim world are angry at France for what they've been doing in some of their countries? Agreed?
Well, of course, but at the same time, I think what the West has is religious tolerance, unlike Muslim countries. And you look at how the Christians have been diminished in Iraq over time, how there are constant attacks in other countries. That's got to stop. If they want religious tolerance everywhere, and we've got to have it, I think that this will help. But certainly the leaders of all sects, whether Muslim and Christians, ought to be showing some leadership and put a stop to this and showing some unanimity and working together rather than having this constantly go on. Or it's going to go on forever.
Michael Maloof, my thanks to you as usual. Dr. Hilal, thank you so much for joining us in this important conversation. And please come on back. We'd like to talk to you some more. Appreciate it. Before we go to break, I want to show you an image. It's really out of this world. Talk about a different kind of story. That's a really weird crater you're looking at right there. That's a crater on the moon. It looks like nothing